So I guess we're going to start off talking about the human genome. We both just got our genome sequenced. Haven't got the results back yet. We'll have to have a follow-up conversation when that happens.
Definitely. I think they're going to find that I'm like the cure to something. It's in my DNA.
Hope so.
I'm not sure, but, did you answer that question? Did you answer any of those questions? It says, is there anything unique that we might find in your DNA? And I'm like, I put this on there. I said, I might have the cure to something in my DNA. I think you should take a really close look. And I'm wondering who's on the other end of that screen reading that response going, this guy. They're either like, oh, let's really look into this, or they're like, oh, this guy's got a sense of humor.
Yeah. Or maybe hopefully they don't find anything unique in the genome, in the DNA. Heard an interesting fact about the human epigenome. There's a scientist, Manolis something, and he said that in each one of our cells we have 2 meters of DNA. And if you took all the cells in your body, which is like maybe 30 trillion cells or something, we have enough DNA strand to reach from here to Jupiter and back 10 times.
Oh, wow.
Which is insane.
That is.
I mean, that's
crazy. It's hard
unfathomable.
To even, it's hard to even picture that.
So we have there's a lot of code that goes into a human being.
So what was it, like $2.7 billion, the first sequencing of the human genome?
Something like that, yeah.
It's over $2 billion.
Close to $3 billion, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so and I hate to always revert to money, but I believe I got like this lifetime access, full genome sequencing, all the updates, everything. I think it was $1,000.
$1,100 maybe.
$1,100, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like
like
maybe 12. Maybe it was $11.99.
Yeah. So,
but it was $1,000 for the sequencing, and then $200 for access to the software
for lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
It's really good. It's Nebula Genomics.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's one of
not a paid sponsorship, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
And if we just blow up on social media one day and Nebula wants to throw us some swag or something, feel free.
Absolutely. It's one of Dr. George Church's companies. He's a brilliant scientist, geneticist at Harvard University, and I think he's maybe the guy that first sequenced the human genome.
Really?
But he's big into, he's a big guy in CRISPR, the technology that allows you to modify DNA and stuff like that. And they're in the early stages of that. I mean, they've been using it since, I think, the 80s, but now it's getting pretty advanced, and I think we'll start seeing some really crazy stuff in the near future with
I think
genetic modification.
I think it's already going on, and so I was diving into this a little bit. I've got a family friend that's got they have a history. So apparently it's really rare, but the two of them together, for whatever reason, their children have a really high propensity to have this disease. I'm not going to say which one, but they have this thing that can affect them negatively at birth. And most of the children, it's very unusual for them to live into their teenage years. Most of them die before they get out of the toddler phase. So I was researching for them, but when they're going in and it's IVF, they do some version of IVF, but essentially, and they say, oh, it's designer baby. Well, no, what they're looking at it for is they're trying to go in and find, like, I don't want to say the word good, but I don't know a better word. They're trying to go in and find a healthy sperm, a healthy egg that in all these millions of sperm and then what eggs you have, some of them don't have those traits, those negative traits, right? Those genes. And so they're able to go in and, for better lack of a word, kind of sift through to find the healthiest option.
Right.
So that maybe they can, maybe you can lead this couple to having a child that's not plagued with this disease, right?
Which is great, yeah.
Which is an awesome thing. And I think from that side of it, I think there's a lot of positive that can come from this. Some of the negative controversy out there is like, oh, designer babies are coming, and everybody's going to want a green-eyed baby or this or that. Well, the reality is, at this point, based on the technology, you can't take two parents. The only way you get a green-eyed baby or a blue-eyed baby or a brown-eyed baby, the parents have to have already the natural ability to create that on its own anyway. And I think if you want to pick your child's eye color, I mean, to me, in the grand scheme of things, that's not important. But to somebody, maybe it is.
Right.
It's not a deal breaker for me. The technology I'm most interested in is not picking the eye color. It's can you help that child not have these life-threatening things, right?
Right.
And then when you were sequencing our genome, like for me, I don't know about you, but like I'm curious. Maybe my DNA is going to reveal some things that I'm already health conscious now. You know, knock on wood. Hopefully, I can stay healthy long enough to get all the weight off. But
I'll keep pushing you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but you know, I just hit 8 months of changing my lifestyle around as far as I hate to use the word diet, but what I'm consuming. And
healthy
then,
lifestyle.
Yeah, and lifestyle changes, and then 3 months into really consistently trying to be physically fit and working out. So, you know, this to me might reveal some other things that I may be more predisposed to.
Yeah.
And I can start paying attention to those things. Like, and that's kind of some of the stuff I'm looking for is maybe there's some things that it can help me kind of do some preventative maintenance, and just be forward thinking because, you know, longevity matters.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I just turned 40 this year, so you know, time is really weighing on me. Like you know, I'm at an age now where I can see. I feel like I can see the end. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm almost at the midway point.
You're not even halfway, bro.
I hope not.
Wait till you get to 46.
Yeah. Hey, you know what we need to do? We should, Jesse. We're going to put you on the spot. We should get Jesse's genome done. Do like a special show out of it.
I don't know if I want to know, man.
Well,
I'm curious about the artistic genes over there. Like, I wonder, like, when we compare my DNA to yours, are there going to be clear differences, right? And that's what's interesting to me. Like, I'm curious how user-friendly this is going to be.
You know, I don't know how much they understand about the whole genome right now. I know they're learning what new genes do or what genes. They're discovering, I guess, new functions of genes every day, probably, or every week or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe we can put a link in our thing for this because I think we can send referrals. So maybe we can do an affiliate link in the bottom. I'll try and see if I can grab that. And
sure, yeah.
You know, that would push people. But they also have an option for free, by the way, I believe. And I'm probably going to butcher this, but we were just talking about it a little bit ago that if you wanted to get it done, you could sign up to basically share, not share your personal information, but I think share some of the results of the DNA, and then and through a series of answering surveys and questions and things that you may be able to get your genome sequence for free or at a heavily reduced cost. So something to look into.
Yeah, I think it's called the Human Genome Project, and I believe it allows other research facilities or scientists to purchase access to your genome.
Is this going to change healthcare?
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
It shouldn't be required, do you think?
Before we get too far into that,
let's hear it.
You know, my reasoning for having my genome sequenced now, and probably your reasoning too, is just to see if there are any genetic markers for, you know, predispositions for certain diseases or ailments in the future. And if so, you know, if you are predisposed to a disease, it doesn't mean you're going to get that disease, but it does let you know what you need to change in your lifestyle to prevent that disease. And also there's the hope that with technology like CRISPR, that if you have these bad genes or whatever, in the next few years, possibly 5 or 10 years, they can go in and modify those genes and correct that problem. You know, so if your results come back and say, oh, you're highly likely to develop this certain type of cancer, well, maybe those genes can eventually be modified before you develop it, or you can change your lifestyle in a way that may prevent it. Or like if you're predisposed to have dementia or Alzheimer's, something like that,
right?
You know, maybe there are things that you can do to be proactive to prevent that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and back to what you were saying about genetically modifying embryos. Number one, people who've watched the show, they know that I don't look at things like that as unnatural. It's all natural. We're part of nature. We're creating this stuff, and we don't know why we're doing it. We're just doing it because it's what we do. And it's going to keep advancing. I know people are afraid of changes, and it's scary, and it scares me. But I also realize that it's just part of evolution. It's what we do.
Yep.
And the good thing about it is if you can go in and select embryos based on the genetic material, or select even from the sperm and the egg, and prevent bad genes, you're actually helping our species as a whole. You're helping humanity because you're actually weeding out disease,
right,
and errors. And I think eventually there'll be a time where Homo sapiens, or whatever we become, they don't die, or maybe they live extremely long lives and they're free of disease and illnesses. But I mean, they're already starting to 3D print organs on a micro, small scale.
Yep.
But and from what I've read, that will be on the market in a few years. Maybe within the next decade.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I mean, life expectancy is going to drastically increase.